as a response to the violence and the fighting that was happening in the northern part of the country. When we heard at headquarters about thousands of people coming to the Ugandan border from inside the Congo, we immediately went into action here on this end to recruit and deploy from our disaster response roster of volunteers.
When I heard MTI was getting involved, I knew the situation was particularly desperate, and yet that there was something that maybe we could do to help. It was an incredible sight to see. We were invited there with the UN to see what we could do, how we could meet the needs of the refugees. The people looked traumatized, and I often thought as we would come closer to the camp and look over the field and all the tents, that if suffering were a sound, the noise here would be deafening. When we first met Gasagi, her pain was almost palpable. She really represented some of the horror and the struggle and the suffering that most of the refugees had experienced. When it was her turn, as she waited in line, she came into the exam room. She looked down at the floor. She didn't make any eye contact. She sat in the chair and waited for what would happen next. The conversation went something like this. What brings you in here today?
My chest hurts. I have chest pain when I cough.
Did you fall? Did you injure yourself? I was
beaten. And when I cough, my chest hurts. It reminds me of the beatings. When the rebels came to our village, my husband was away. They beat the women, and then they raped us. When my husband came home and saw what happened, he knew we had to escape. So we gathered our two boys, 8 and 12 years, and with some help of our neighbors, we ran from our home to escape the violence. But the rebels caught up with us, and my husband met a bullet, and he died. It was very frightening and confusing. So I grabbed my boys' hands and we ran to the boulder. We ended up at the refugee camp.
We examined her. Her chest was very sore. She had signs of a pelvic infection. We sent her to the lab across the hall, and they tested her for pregnancy and for HIV and syphilis.
I was grateful to hear that my tests were all negative. Nurse Shalon gave me some medicine that would treat my infection and something for the pain.
We're coming back to the camp tomorrow morning. We'd like to meet you again. We want to check and see how you are. And that was the first time she smiled. And tears began to pour down Gasagi's face. And it was so interesting after the visit, after that first smile at the end of the visit, and then being able to meet her in the camp several times. It was like night and day.
Perhaps this is my first step towards healing.